Grace and peace to everyone. This is the voice of Anesia Baptiste of the Thusia Seventh-day Adventist Church and the Thusian Institute for Religious Liberty, Incorporated. I'd like to share a reading of chapter 5 of my book, Socialist Revolution from Grenada to St. Vincent, which was published in 2010, coming out of the experiences and lessons of the referendum election of November 2009. I commend this chapter and the principles therein to you as you consider your experience today in 2025. It's called Principles of Good Governance. Any leader and government of a country must have certain important principles of good governance. Central to good governance is the understanding expressed in the following lines of the Declaration of Independence of the United States of America. I quote, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to effect their safety and happiness." End quote. God has given humanity three fundamental rights: the right to religious liberty, or the right to serve God, the right to life, and the right to private property. In order to exercise and enjoy those rights, the Creator also endowed mankind with personal freedoms, private domain freedoms of thought, belief, conscience, opinion, and choice, and public domain freedoms of expression, speech, and movement. It is important for governments to understand that these rights and freedoms come from God or are inalienable. They do not come from man, nature, or human legislation. They, your rights, are inalienable because they are a part of our natural human construction by creation. While some of these rights and freedoms may be forfeited through wrongdoing and due process of law, in the interest of protection of rights and freedoms of others, the right to religious liberty and the private domain freedoms cannot be touched by human laws. It is only when governments and leaders hold these principles that there will be guaranteed equal treatment for all in protection of the rights and freedoms of all, not just of a majority or any influential minority group. Inalienable rights principles help to foster a sacred regard for human rights and freedoms, which translates into greater respect for those said rights and freedoms. Problems of political victimization, inequality of treatment, and discrimination may all be solved through living principles of inalienable rights in the hearts and ways or behaviors of leaders in government and government departments. The opposite is equally true. That if a prime minister thinks himself a god or king with the absolute power to manage the rights and freedoms of the people at his will, contempt for the citizens would be the result. Governments are servants of the people, and the people are their employers and the true rulers of their own destiny. It is by the people's votes that they put governments into office and remove them likewise. Therefore, their tenure is by the permission of the people, and the people judge them on their behavior at the end of the term in office. People do not put governments in place by their votes to trample upon their rights and freedoms. While government is elected by the will of the majority, they are to govern or serve by the duty to protect the inalienable rights and freedoms of both the majority and the minority. If this is not the case, there would be the tyranny of the majority over the rights and freedoms of the minority. Some advance the idea that provision of material things is the essence of government's role in the lives of the people. However, while governments must aid in making these things available to the people, greater emphasis must be on protection of their rights and freedoms. For what is a man, though he has shelter, food, and clothing, but does not live in an environment where he is free? Free to think, initiate, invent, and pursue his ideas. Free to express his opinions, popular or not, and free to be critical of the things with which he disagrees. Free to have self-determination. The manner in which governments treat the people's criticisms is also indicative of whether they subscribe to good governance practices or not. As with any other person and group, governments are entitled to have critical intolerance towards evils of the day. They too are free to be critical of the things around them. However, they must never descend into persecutive intolerance towards the people because they disagree with their views. In other words, while a government is free to criticize its own people, it is not free to persecute them. Criticism is a natural dimension of free speech and expression, just as commendation is natural. Governments are not gods, and thus are not infallible. They can make mistakes, and the criticisms of the people are checks to curb corruption and ensure safeguarding of their rights and freedoms. Many inventions and advancements in the different realms of human life, science, business, and such like, have come about as a result of people's criticism of traditional methods. Similarly, societies have been rescued from many evils due to the vigilance of watchmen on their walls, scrutinizing the performance of governments and leaders. Therefore, politics is the policy operation of government to protect the rights and freedoms of the citizens in the economic, social, and international realm of human existence. The way in which governments treat human freedoms, especially freedom of expression, is often indicative of its true characteristic. Freedom of expression takes in the freedom to disagree and to criticize the policies of the government without any repercussions of political victimization and persecution. It is not, as has been characteristic of the behavior of political parties in the Caribbean, engaging in slanderous drivel suited for the pages of well-known scandalous magazines. It is not about power-hungry persons bent on slandering and vilifying anyone whom they are afraid to engage in intelligent and meaningful discussions. These animal principles of behavior are not suited for the governance of a country. And when politicians engage in such behavior, they reveal that they are not fit to hold the reins of power over human beings, for whom they should have sympathy. Additionally, true statesmanship in politics shows respect and care, not only for supporters, but also for opponents. One can judge the caring and gracious record of a government by how it treats its opponents, not so much its supporters. When it practices governance by blessing only its supporters, but victimizing and persecuting its opponents, this is not genuine and good governance. End of the chapter. Please listen to this. Listen to it again. Listen to it over and over. And consider the reality of your experience today in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.